Hello and welcome to another episode of the Cleveland Sports Bros podcast. I'm Matt alongside my brother Nick. Nick, how's it going today?
Great, ready to talk about Browns and Guardians.
Yep, and today's a football Friday, but also a baseball playoff Friday. We're excited to talk Guardians, but first we'll do a brief recap on the Browns and also look ahead to their next game coming up this Sunday. So Nick, what'd you see against the Raiders? Another tough loss.
Yeah, for sure. Watson had a much improved game. Cleveland had a 10-0 lead in the first quarter, and it's tough to see your team go down against uh, another struggling team, especially when your quarterback, Deshaun Watson, had a strong game.
Yeah, so it that's what I found most deflating is he played a pretty good game all around and they still lost to a team that we don't think is going to be all that great. Um, I understand we have a lot of injuries right now that they're still working through, but the team just seemed like they couldn't piece it together, and they had a chance at the end, but you know they couldn't make it happen.
Yeah, in the game, Watson had a touchdown pass on the opening drive. And it always seems Cleveland, and at least Stefanski, for the time he's been here, uh, nearly 5 years, has pretty good scripted opening drives, but he can't seem to piece that together and make adjustments as the game goes on. So we're kind of wondering why that is.
Yeah, and I don't know if that's the players just not making it happen or him making adjustments. I don't know. I still think he's a good coach, and I still like him calling plays, but I would be willing to, as a fan, obviously my opinion doesn't matter, but I'd be willing to see him step aside and be more of that overseer during the game rather than calling plays. Especially now, I don't know how much it can hurt. They're in a deep hole that if you want to make the playoffs, it's going to be hard to get out of. And I think that they should be open to anything, even if he's not necessarily the problem. Again, personally, I like his play design and stuff like that, generally speaking, but perhaps switching it up could have a positive effect. I don't know. What do you think?
Yeah, you never know what could happen if the right strings are pulled and uh, I just want to point out some moments in last week's game against Vegas where Watson looked strong, but unfortunately it did not go in our favor. Uh, he threw what would have been an 87-yard touchdown pass to add to their momentum, and it was called back on a questionable holding penalty. And also, I believe in the third quarter, he threw a deep ball to Amari Cooper that hit him right in the chest, and it popped out of the air into the air and was picked off. And that could have helped the Browns uh, put the game away because I believe at the time they had the lead.
Yeah, and the penalty at first, I couldn't believe it, but I could see it go either way. I mean, that's a tough call. As a Browns fan, probably most of us didn't like it, but I could see it, and even on the broadcast, they kind of felt the same way at first. They couldn't believe it, and then the replay again. That's a tough call, but it was sad to see that taken away. And yeah, the thing with Cooper is that's a it seems maybe easy, but that's over the middle. I know I wouldn't want to go over the middle, and he was kind of surrounded. It was a good throw, but yeah, if you added that completion and that touchdown pass, Watson's numbers would have looked amazing, not just okay. But if you actually watched the game, you could tell that he played pretty well. So it's tough when your quarterback plays well to still lose, but you got to go bounce back, and they're going to play in their third straight away game and against a surprisingly tough Washington Commanders team with a really solid so far rookie quarterback in Jaden Daniels. So, Nick, what do you think they'll do in this game?
Well, I think, as I mentioned earlier, uh, they've done well with scripted plays. They need to be able to make, on both sides of the ball, adjustments throughout the football game in order to uh, put up points and stop the opposing offense. That's how you win football games in the NFL. And you need to see consistency offensively and defensively. And, with a rookie QB who's playing pretty at a high level, you need to put pressure on him and attack him.
Yeah, I agree. I think this is where maybe the defense of last year could show some signs of coming back at least. But I expect Schwartz to be aggressive, and I expect guys like Myles Garrett to kind of put some fear into Daniels, and maybe that can lead to some mistakes. I don't know, but I agree. They ought to be aggressive on defense, and I'm a bit pessimistic. I don't think they'll win, but anything can happen in the NFL, especially. So uh, we'll be sure to bring an update. But let's talk more positive, at least, about the Guardians. First playoff game, surprisingly, well, maybe not. They're facing, I don't even think it's that arguable, the hottest team in baseball right now, the Detroit Lions. Sorry, not Lions, Tigers. First game tomorrow, 108. Yeah. Nick, what do you think? What do you see in that game?
Well, we do know that Tanner Bybee is going to take the mound for the Guardians, and we still don't have a clear idea of who's going to be on the mound for the Detroit Tigers, but I believe they'll go with a bullpen game and go with their ace, Skubal, in game two on Monday. But the Guardians do have home field advantage in a best of five series, and you know, the level stakes are higher in the playoffs. But what the Guardians need to do to take it game by game is score first, get hot at the plate, and let the pitching do the rest. You know, they have the best bullpen in baseball. Uh, Tim Herron, Kate Smith, Emmanuel Clase. If you give the Guardians, or excuse me, if the Guardians give their own pitchers a solid 3+ lead in the sixth inning on, I think they can slam the door.
Yeah, and Detroit, I mean, we all know Skubal. He's almost certainly going to be the AL Cy Young. He's arguably the best starting pitcher in baseball right now. I like Bobby though too. Of course, he's shown it throughout the year, throughout the season. So, um, but as a fan, you got to be happy. I mean, one thing with the bye, I know a fear people have is too much rest, but they're not facing Skubal game one, and momentum can really play a factor in baseball. So even though their bullpen guys or all their pitchers have pitched pretty well in this really nice run they've had, you got to like the idea of Bybee going against a bullpen game and not having to face Skubal because not that they can't beat him, but if you go down 0-1, especially if you're the home team, I mean that's really tough. So um, I think they'll win Saturday. We'll see about Monday, but let's give a prediction on the series at least. Nick, what do you think?
I believe Guardians will not only win the series, but they'll take care of business at home and win the first two. But I think it'll take them four games. I think they'll win the first two, drop the third, and win game four at Comerica Park.
Yeah, I don't know about winning the first two, but just because of Scooble. But I do think they'll win in four, but nothing would surprise me. So, if that means winning game one, losing game two, and then winning the next, three and four, that's going to be tough to do. But look, it's the playoffs. Anything can happen. Ultimately, I think pitching is really what's going to separate these teams in terms of who wins on any given day. And like I said, although they've had good pitchers outside of Skubal, I really like our pitching better. Um, and I like pretty much everything else about the teams better, for the Guardians. I think they have a better lineup, um, better defense for the most part, and certainly better bullpen. So it doesn't matter how you win. You can win 1-0, 2-0. If you got a lead, like you said, going into the bullpen, turning it over to those guys, I like our chances.
Yeah, and this is a little um unimportant, but I'd like to remind everyone in the playoffs, if you get to an extra inning game in any part of the round, whether it's division, uh, championship series, or World Series, uh, extra inning, you don't have the so-called ghost runner on second base. Do you like that rule?
Yeah, I do. And in wild card too, right? It's gone there
Correct.
too. Yeah. I do. I like it during the regular season because 162 is just a lot, and they don't want games, even though every game does matter, but they don't want games going 15 innings all the time. And the Ghost Runner, I think, helps with that. So, yeah, I like in the playoffs that it takes away kind of something that could
And
add a
adventure.
little more chaos and is more traditional. So I do like that they take it away. But I love the pitch clock. Um, so yeah, I just yeah, I'm good with that. But ultimately, we'll be sure to bring an update sometime next week. But looking forward to a really great series. It looks like I haven't checked too far out, but these first two games in Cleveland is supposed to be real good fall baseball weather, so gotta love that. And I kind of like these day games too. If they move on, especially if they're playing the Yankees, but I guess either team probably they're going to be playing a lot of night games. So, but obviously focus on Detroit first and look, take care of business at home. If you do that, you win. So, um, I think they do win the series, whether it's 3 games, 4 or 5 games, doesn't matter all that much. Just get the job done.
Yeah, and we wanted to point out one more thing, a little, it relates to the Guardians, but it goes a tad off subject. Um, Breaking news last night, kind of out of nowhere. Terry Francona, former manager, was hired by the Cincinnati Reds, and some fans may dislike it. I'm super happy for him, and I think it's very cool that um we get to see him next year back in Cincinnati. We will face the Reds uh, in a 3-game series both ways. Usually it's two, but I'm very excited for Tito. What do you think about that?
Yeah, for me, it came out of nowhere too. I agree. I'm happy with him. It's look, if the Guardians weren't doing so well right now, it's kind of one of those things where it seemed like both parties, meaning the Guardians and Francona, could use a change. He needed some time off. Um, and he is with the team that, they're not huge rivals or anything. I know we talk about the Ohio Cup and things like that, but it'll be nice to see him. It'll be weird seeing him in the first base dugout, and I wonder if he'll bring his captain's chair. That'd be nice to see, or maybe we could provide one to him. But yeah, I'm happy for him, and you know, um, I wish him well. Now, obviously, if we're facing them in the World Series, that's a different story, but that'd kind of be something. But yeah, um, big news for sure. Glad to see him back, and hopefully he's healthy and they have a good season. All right, everyone, you've been listening to the Cleveland Sports Bros podcast. Thank you again, and go Guards.